Right, let's have a go at this. Dave.
Hello.
First. Give us something about the activity. I think the best is maybe say which MOOC we were discussing might be useful.
Okay, we've talked a lot about DS106, and I think kind of one of the major points we made about that is that it is kind of basically internet native. That in many senses it's kind of indistinguishable from doing things on the internet. It's a really kind of fuzzy boundary from just doing things on the internet because they're cool and actually doing that MOOC. So I think in terms of technologies that we need to be as open as possible to different alternatives, and we need to be using things that people might actually want to use anyway and probably be using anyway. So you see a lot of stuff you'd be using social media, you'd be using the standard kind of office-like and collaboration tool set that most people are using and adapting, as Anne says. That these are major mainstream things that where adaptations are needed, they normally exist and are fairly mature already, but I'm not an expert in this.
So I can turn the camera on myself. So I like that idea that basically they appealed to the idea of what we would call a web culture.
Yes.
They implicitly, implicitly expectations are that you will be part of a standardised kind of an idea of a web culture which might be around social networking, sharing and openness already before you actually start the MOOC. Yeah. Dave, do you want to add something about this idea as well? We're reflecting on the idea of learning as a hobby and the hobbyist.
Yeah, well, I like David's comment of the drive-by assignment. So that you wouldn't necessarily... The point of it wasn't... I mean, I think that why David was drawn into that particular MOOC was because of the kind of crowd of people learning from others, rather than necessarily having fixed notions of learning outcomes for yourself.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and so the point of the exercise wasn't necessarily to stay the whole course, it was to do whatever you were interested in, and we came to the sort of conclusion that perhaps this notion of the hobbyist is one that could be quite useful in terms of your approach to designing a MOOC. So if you design a MOOC with the expectation that people are learning as a hobby, rather than necessarily driven by an assignment or official accreditation, then perhaps that's most likely to get the highest level of engagement. And you know, as I'm saying, as part of that is to not necessarily have the expectation that people will take an entire curricular trajectory through the whole thing.
So there needs to be a looseness in the curriculum to allow for new pathways, to have some kind of your own adventure and build your own storyline through the curriculum, your own pathways.
And a place for serendipity, basically. Then there needs to be space. There needs to be space in there for stuff to just kind of happen spontaneously. If we plan it too tightly, it becomes like actually we're responsible for the entirety of the student journey experience, and that's actually where it gets difficult.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, write that down. So we're looking for pleasure, not pain. That's what we're saying. As soon as it gets too painful, we're expecting people to drop out. And do you want
this MOOC is not actually going to be 50 Shades of Grey. It'll be something else entirely. It'll be much more fun than that.
So in a way, it needs to unfold as it It needs to unfold as it goes along.
Yeah.
And the pleasure will be in that unfolding and people making their own way through. So loose structuring is part of the design. And you wanted to add? Did you want to add something about the accessibility?
Yes, I think. For me, the serendipity is good. I think the serendipity idea, the hobbyist idea are great. But we should also have people who make sure it's accessible for those people who have sometimes functional or sensory disabilities. And I don't think we should exclude, and I want it open to everyone. And by that, I mean it should be accessible.
Brilliant. Okay, I think that's as much. That's 4 minutes. I think that's great. Excellent. Thanks, everyone.